I want to thank you all for joining us again for this lunch keynote session at TEDCO's 2019 Entrepreneur Expo. We had great sessions so far. I don't know if you had a chance to be in all the sessions or it's some of the sessions. My favorite one was the Series A to exit kind of session that I thought had a lot of valuable information. So please check in the sessions in the afternoon and try to participate as much as you can. There is a lot of information there and it would be great if you can participate in those. I want to thank all the sponsors that we have that made this Expo special, especially to AARP, which is sponsoring this lunch keynote address. I don't know how many of you understand, but AARP is addressing a $5 trillion market opportunity, and they're working with startups to address the needs of their members. So if you haven't had a chance to talk to Nigel and his team, talk to them because they're doing great work. Our graphic artist has already started the work here and going to help us through this session, and he's going to capture all the keynote address and some other sessions, and afterwards you can see the work displayed in the Entrepreneur Hub at the exhibit hall, so please go there. It looks amazing. And now I'm excited to introduce the lunch keynote and a local success story, which is Dr. Marcus Chacón, that most of you know. But first, I'm going to introduce the moderator for the session. And we have TEDCO's vice chair of our board, Tina Williams-Koroma. Tina founded, Tina founded TSecure, which is a cybersecurity risk management services company headquartered in Maryland. She is a Maryland licensed attorney and possesses a bachelor's degree in computer science from UMBC, a master's in management from Rensselaer Polytech Institute, and a JD from the University of Maryland Carey School of Law. Tina has multiple board affiliations, as I mentioned, TEDCO. She's also serving on the UMBC Research Park, Baltimore County Department of Economic and Workforce Development, and she's an instructor at UMBC for the graduate cybersecurity program. She also serves as the Cybersecurity Academic Innovation Officer for the National Cybersecurity FFRDC. I don't know what the acronym is for, but the more letters, it has to be so important. And it is sponsored by NIST, so it has to be really important. And most importantly, she still finds time to play soccer twice a week, which is very impressive. Our keynote speaker today is Dr. Marcus Chacón. He's the founder of Eraso Bio Holding, an early development company de-risking therapeutic discoveries. Marco previously served as assistant vice president for Industry Alliance at UMB. As a seasoned biopharmaceutical executive and entrepreneur, Dr. Chacón worked with UMB, leading special project to grow the biopark tenant-based. And I think it worked because the biopark is full now. Also, he strengthened the university research collaboration with industry. Before that, Marco was the founder and former chairman of Paragon Bioservices. It was a contract development and GMP manufacturing organization within the gene therapy and vaccine markets. The company was acquired in May 2019, as some of you know, for just over, I don't know the exact amount, I heard $1.2 billion by Catalan Pharma Solutions, and it became Catalan Paragon Gene Therapy, and the combined organization currently employs 700 individuals deployed in 3 Maryland locations. Dr. Chacón receives his bachelor's in science degree from Youngstown State University, his PhD from University of Maryland College Park, and he currently serves at the Board of Trustees for UMB Foundation and was appointed in 2016 to the Life Science Advisory Board by the governor. So thank you, and Tina and Marco, love to hear what you have to say.
All right, thank you so much, Dan. So you all are in for a treat. I know that it's tough sometimes. Speakers will say it's tough being before lunch because everybody's trying to get to the food, but I think there's also an equal challenge after lunch if you ate too much, but us as Americans, we never do that, right? Yeah, so hopefully this is very engaging. We have a great speaker. I had a great time talking to him, getting to know him, so I'm quite sure you all will enjoy the conversation as much as I did, if not more. All right, so let's dig into our second meal, a great conversation. All right, so how did your entrepreneurial journey start?
Okay. Well, before I launch into an answer to the question at hand, I want to thank TEDCO, all of you for being here. and for inviting me to participate today.
Certainly.
So becoming an entrepreneur, I think I gave some thought to, what is appropriate. And you can answer the question in different levels or considering different parts of your life. One is, the simplest one, necessity is the mother of invention. I got out of grad school with 2 babies in tow, and while my first love was always the bench, and I wasn't too bad at it either. But compromises along the way dictated that I needed to do something else. So after a few years, I went to work for DoD for a couple of years, and soon thereafter decided to set something up that I could call my own. And then we are sort of subject to forces in the marketplace at all times. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So as I am developing my career, there are all kinds of very interesting events taking place in the marketplace. And I can even go before that to account for my entire life, for that matter. And you can do the math on my age, but I was 3 years old when Watson and Crick in '53 and Rosalind Franklin published, there's a 4th author and his name escapes me right now, published their seminal work on describing this wonderful molecule called DNA. That unleashed a set of events that every so many months or years, something pivotal came to the fore. Recombinant DNA technologies, restriction enzymes before that were apparent. The launching of the Human Genome Project with great success, and we're very fortunate to have in our marketplace one of the leaders of that great effort. One, Claire Fraser, who is the director of the Institute of Genome Science, Bioinformatics and Microbiome at the University of Maryland in Baltimore. Soon thereafter, the first monoclonal antibody gets approved by the FDA. 2017, and I have to sort of bring it to your attention if you weren't paying attention, but is a pivotal year or a watershed year in this industry. For the first time, the majority of compounds approved by the FDA happen to be protein drugs, the very promise of this wonderful industry called biotechnology. Soon thereafter, gene therapies and cell therapies are making a great impact on the way that cancers are treated, that arthritis and other inflammatory diseases are pursued. There are medicines that are working for Crohn's disease, for ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, and a number of other symptoms. So I think back at the influences that I was being affected by of this actual revolution in thought is taking place. And while, to be honest, I had to look at the term biotechnology those many years back, for when I started a company, there was only a couple of names around, Genentech, Amgen, and they were tiny little concerns. Look at what happened in the interim. So, and then I can answer it a different way too. As a child of the 60s, we all wanted to change the world. And we were against orthodoxy and just do something weird and different. And I think there's some aspect of that is within. With that as and there is another aspect of this, is that I had to answer the question early on as, why do I do what I do? Why do you do what you do, for that matter? And I came up with a little blurb that I wrote for a presentation. And it goes this way: there are no boundaries to the human spirit thirst for discovery and technology development. A chosen passion by all of us in this room that make us attempt to touch the future. And in a nutshell, I think that describes who we are as a community, who we are as entrepreneurs, as scientists, engineers. So with that, answer the why doing something entrepreneurial. Then it became a choice of, answer the other questions, the what, and that's a tricky one because where do you put your chips? What do you choose? And it boiled down to finding out what is that thing that really, that you're great at. It's not just good, but something that you feel you're great at. And then developing that into some product, some service. And I found that doing what I do in terms of working with providing services of all kinds, that entails, developing a relationship with a client. The client needs to trust you. All these things, I think that I've been pretty good at those things. So bank on those strengths that we all have. Discover that you're great at. And then it's about the how. The how is difficult, but it gets a little easier as a function of time. In 1990-91, when I was ascertaining to set up a company, well, we didn't have TEDCO. We didn't have, the early stage funding sources that we do today. The university, the state of Maryland, has gone a long way, to build some infrastructure. The Momentum Fund, Baltimore has gotten in the fray with the Baltimore Fund. And actually, there are pharma ventures and early stage venture capital firms that are funding early stage projects. So the how do you build a facility, a lab, buy instrumentation, and that takes is easier in my book. So I decided to set up a company, became a services company called Paragon Bioservices. Struggled for years with that, and many of you familiar faces here have been with me along that journey in one way or another. It was extremely difficult to make it work. Along the way, different things happened. We decided to expand our business plan. So there are two events, very pivotal events in the history of this company. One was moving into the biopark at the University of Maryland. And the reason being is that I was seeking to build more infrastructure to support something more sophisticated than what we were doing. We were doing very general pharmaceutical services for our clients, including so-called process development. But we were losing our clients to very established so-called CMOs, contract manufacturing organizations, the likes of Lonza, the likes of actually Catalent. So we decided to add to the mix GMP manufacturing services. But little did we know, and I think that you were going to ask about difficulties along the way, but I think I could touch on it right now. So we were moving into the biopark in March of '09. So I have obtained two facilities from a banking source to build the project, build the facilities, and a revolving line of credit to get us going. So what happened at the end of '08? The banking crisis happened. And every business in the universe will show forever, and probably being studied in business schools throughout the world, how everybody took a hit in early '09. So early '09, the economy was losing jobs, 800, 900,000 jobs every month. And here we were, building infrastructure, going into a brand new place, and facing up to the music, meaning, the bankers were there, the landlord was there, the university that welcomed us into the biopark was there, and trying to paint a bright future, as realistic a future as possible. But those are some of the, and I kind of got ahead of myself, but that was one of the most difficult periods that the company had to face. Imagine sitting with your crew. At that time I had about, 38, 40 employees, and telling them that everybody was going to take a haircut. We were not going to get rid of anyone, but that everybody was going to agree to take a 20% pay cut. That myself and my wife, who has been with me from the very beginning of the company, and a wonderful CFO that we had, a guy by the name of Ron Wilson. Some of you may remember him. He's in a better place today. We all volunteered for 50%. What I did tell him, though, that turned out to be a wonderful thing for everyone, was those revenues that they were not going to get in '09, I was going to net him that amount in the form of stock options at the end of the year, which I did. The austerity measures spilled over into 10, but interestingly enough, 10 was like flipping a switch. It became, at the end of the year, our numbers, it was a banner year for us, bottom line. So I could net him whatever I did not earn in the early part of 10 in cash. So forward 10 years, a wonderful transaction that took place, and those folks that worked with me are very loyal to the company, very courageous in their decision to stick with the company. They really benefit big time when the transaction occurred. So that was a real tough one. So imagine, but I didn't tell you this, the bank came and told me that my wife and I had to sign personally. And I don't know how many of you have done that before, but it's not a very pleasant thing to do. And imagine the discussion over our dinner tables that night. And that went on for a year and a half. But things worked out at the end, and but that was one event, moving to the ballpark. The other one was, and I see one of our financial funds here, Attila Ratnam from New Spring Capital, who backed the company even when things were looking a little rough. And the other one's Camden Partners here from Baltimore. But so in 14, a high capital intensive company like Paragon, we were struggling, and became clear that we needed capital from the outside. And so these two funds listened to our story and trusted me, trusted the group, trusted the business plan, and they had the foresight or the, to identify an opportunity, and that if they were going to fund this, that this thing would take off. We struggled a little bit initially, but eventually the company kept on growing. I see Ava Polyakov here. So no man is an island, no woman is an island. And Ava from Gordon Feinblatt and Michelle Resnick there as well. They were extremely helpful to overseeing that this whole deal and that Paragon continue in this trade.
So I hear that in your story, a lot of struggle, there's challenge periods, et cetera. Mm-hmm. How did you know to continue to press forward versus just saying, you know what, maybe this wasn't the best idea for me to have followed up on from a company? Like, how would an entrepreneur know, or at least how did you know to say that this is something that I should just press through, these are challenges to press through, instead of just cutting your losses and saying maybe a different venture is the better way to go? What was your decision process in that?
There's a rumor out there, terrible rumor, that Marco Chacón is very stubborn. It's a rumor. Now my wife will validate that. No, in a less flippant sort of way, I think that some things are not going to work. And you have to have the fortitude to chuck it. And it's hard sometimes, but you have to make those decisions. You have to pivot. I think it's not just chucking something, but I think that in a way what helped the company remain afloat and growing was that we put a broad portfolio of services. And while some would work quite well and have a better return, others did not. And at some point, you have to make those decisions that, this unit, or I had at one time, angiogenesis assays, in vitro, in vivo. I went into tumor xenografts. Keeping up an animal facility is not for the faint of heart, I have to tell you. At some point, we had to relinquish that. I had this one hurt me a lot because I love morphology, but we had a full histology, immunohistochemistry. We kept the electron microscopy capabilities, but the other two I had to get rid of. Earlier in one of the sessions today, someone said that being the head of a company, being a CEO, kind of a lonesome thing, and it is. And sometimes you have to make those decisions, in the wee hours of the morning, and you have to stick to them. But you need to pivot, you need to reinvent yourself, but also a little bit of stubbornness is not a bad thing. You can sugarcoat it and call it, I don't know, resilience.
Well, I'm a Taurus bull myself, so I understand stubbornness does have its place, yeah.
It's conviction.
Yes, yeah.
And I'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So you've also mentioned and pointed out some individuals within the audience here, like the people around you, and that just being like a really pivotal part of your journey. So how do you pick the right team and the right people to be around you? How did you go about picking a team?
I'll talk about the team in a moment, but you acknowledge, people in the audience. There are many familiar faces here. And to the same theme that I mentioned earlier, no man, no organization is an island. And in that sense, the founders, me included, we get too much credit. First, I'm a co-founder. My wife was there with me all along, number one. I had a team of solid individuals that stayed with me for years on end, some of them better part of 20 years. On top of that is people who you are related to by extension. The folks from the biopark in Maryland, the university at large, that welcomed me and treated me extremely well. The service providers, from our accounting firms to our legal firms and so on. The client base. People forget about the client base. There will be no business unless these people trusted you and handed over a project, a baby in many instances, extremely, extremely important for the very survival. And that is gold. So is everybody. Now, as to specifically finding individuals, I think that we were very fortunate and to be in a marketplace, and we don't credit it enough, I don't think, although I sell it every time I can, is our region. Look around. In Baltimore, 2 leading universities with major cancer centers and clinical trials and all kinds of capabilities and expertise. The NIH, the NCI, DOD, other universities in the region. So there's always a wealth of talent that for years on end, I never went to a headhunter per se. And somehow or other, by relying on the network and doing these kinds of things, resumes come to you. I was very picky, definitely. I always look for, there are 2 of my associates here, so I better be careful how I frame this. It is people who not only have had their training, and everybody looks awfully good on paper, but they have done things that go beyond what is the usual, without personalizing on them. But I look for military service. I look for Peace Corps, volunteers. I look for individuals like that. In fact, there was a little anecdote, but it's very relevant. There was a really, a crusty old guy that I befriended many years ago when I was setting up Paragon the first time. He was a quintessential salesman, and he told me, "Marco, I heard you're forming a company." And I said, "Yeah, Bill." Bill Miller, his name. He said, "When you hire people, I want you to ask him 2 questions." I said, "What's that, Bill?" I said, "Ask him, do you work on your car or your motorcycle or whatever? If they say yes, that's a very good thing. Because they're independent, they're not afraid of tools, they crawl on their equipment, whatever it takes." And there's some truth to that. And the other one that was pivotal to him said, "Ask him if they grew up in a farm. And if they say yes," and I've asked the question, and they look at me kind of said, "Why?" Well, yes, but why is that? I said, "Because I'm going to hire you right now." Bill said, and it's for good reason. If you grow up in a farm, you work like, your work ethic is superior. Those animals are not going to wait. The crops are not going to get collected by themselves. It's 4 o'clock in the morning and it's late at night, and if the weather helps. So that teaches resilience and grit, and I think that we all need that kind of work ethic in any company.
Right, yeah. So I think continuing on the theme of people and just the individuals that you have surrounded yourself with throughout your career, you've been very supportive of women throughout your career. What's the basis of that? Where did that stem from with you in being so supportive in that capacity?
Well, I'm the son of one, Alicia Leandro, lifetime teacher and principal in the school for many years, so she always worked. So my mother found this absolutely saintly woman. I can say that I'm, by extension, her son as well, and my siblings. Her name is Isabel Mendez, but the town, my classmates, we all knew her as Yaya. So I got discipline from my mama, punctuality, maybe a little stubbornness, all those good things. I got a sense of charity and tenderness and all those good things from my nanny, Yaya. So, and I wouldn't be here without those two. In addition to that, I wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for my wife. I ended up in a little town in Ohio when I was a kid, and I found this girl, and she's been my wife for 47 years. So I have a daughter. I may be, I think the world of my mama, but I can tell you I'm not a mama's boy either. But you don't have to be a mama's boy. You can be sensitive, but not, so what?
Right.
In a country, I grew up in a country that is in many ways enlightened and educated, but women suffer from limitations. If there is a glass ceiling here, there is a lead ceiling in many corners of the world. And I don't understand that. And so I'm all for equal pay, for equal work, full rights for every individual, and certainly women. Women are very creative. They can, they have multiple channels. I'm convinced of that. Right. They multitask. It's not only they go to work, but they go home and take care of kids. So my job has always been a lot easier than that of women.
So you've mentioned your relationship with the University of Maryland Biopark, and so just more broadly, what do you think is the real benefit and value of the relationship and involvement of universities with entrepreneurship?
All right, but before that, I came to grad school at the University of Maryland many years ago, and I never left. So it's been a love affair for the better part of 35, 40 years. I lived in Gaithersburg for 3 years, but came back. I founded the company actually at Hopkins Bayview, but there was no more space for us to move on to. And the University of Maryland, Baltimore had been very entrepreneurial. Also, College Park, they had their incubators, and UMBC as well. But I found a project that was totally mature. They had a second building in the works, so I had to wait for about a year, but I landed the facilities that I needed. It was built to spec to support our GMP manufacturing capabilities. On top of that, the university leadership, I give them a lot of credit for their vision. When you look standing at the medical school or any of the schools there, and you look west, most people will see blight and they want to run away. These people from the university, they saw progress, they saw opportunity. They saw an opportunity to make the town better. One house, one block, one building at a time. And I endorse that. So another feature of the biopark now, specifically the biopark, is that enable us to interact with faculty from the various schools. Those of you that may not be familiar with University of Maryland, there are 7 professional schools there. Medicine, the biggest one, dental school, pharmacy school. So if you need, any medical indication, you're about to find an expert in there, a consultant in there. If you need formulation development, there's a full-blown school of pharmacy there. There's a school of nursing and a couple other schools, the graduate school included. So I always managed to leverage the expertise that I found within the university, and they were very welcoming to interacting with Paragon in going together after government contracts, for instance. We did a couple of large projects for the Department of Defense. I'm very proud of those projects. We built made these virus-like particle vaccines against Ebola, Sudan, Zaire, and Marburg virus for DoD. In all three instances, the candidate vaccines proved to be 100% protective in non-human primates. And then we did some other project called V-Replicon, this is Venezuelan encephalitis replicon system, and I needed additional expertise from the university, and a couple of PIs came to the rescue. If you have an opportunity to put the name of one Mike Levine in there, or people who are well recognized in the world of vaccinology, then that proposal has legs. And no doubt that was a lot of the reason why we were awarded those contracts.
Awesome.
So, but like that, now I'm back in there with a new venture. Irazuba Holdings is a holding company. It will be developing several assets in its portfolio and heavily reliant on interactions with the university, either licensing a technology from within the university or engaging people to do certain aspects of another project in some core center of excellence, of which are many within the confines of the university. So the relationship, this love affair will continue into the future.
Awesome, awesome. So staying with the universities, the talent there with the student base, have you also been able to leverage the intellectual and talent capital of the students in addition to whether working with you, partnering with you, or working for your company?
Absolutely, we hired many of them. From Hopkins, from the NIH, from all over the place.
Awesome,
Yeah.
okay. So one of the things you mentioned earlier was just choosing a venture based upon where your strengths are. So if you have multiple ideas for a venture and you think you're good, have you ever had an experience where maybe you started down one path because you had an interest there, you thought it was a strong area, but you just had to say, I don't think this is going anywhere?
Well, those who know me much better know that I keep a folder called ideas. And the idea folder, most of them are outlandish, crazy thoughts, but I used to send myself, notarized mail, what do you call it, certified mail, on ideas, and I have several of those. But going back to them, I said, geez, that's crazy, Marco. No,
Right.
that's not going to work. But a couple of them are not so bad, and I'm pursuing them. So I think within the realm of creativity, if you have something that, is strong and has legs, you have to pursue it. At least, give it a whirl, and if it's not panning out, then kill it. But at least you did it.
Give it a try, okay. Now, do you think it's possible to pursue more than one at a time, or is your recommendation kind of do things in a more serial fashion than parallel? If you have one venture, should you see it all the way through to the point of being able to say, either I need to pivot or leave it alone? What's your...
Well, I think by the structure of the new company, Irazuba Holdings, the model is one where the idea is to handle multiple assets at the same time. The reason for that is that the conventional paradigm of one asset to a pharmaceutical company, if they find each other, a PI at a university and a scientist at a company, they're like ships in the night. Eventually there may be a collision, but that old paradigm is not what we need. Today, for those in the know, the pharmaceutical industry is in dire straits. Return on investment on their internal R&D is at an all-time low. In fact, on the water, by surveys that I've been reading this year and into the future. So they're scratching their head how we're going to do this. So a holding company or any other model that de-risk technology is welcomed by them. And that's the reason to do this, because by having more shots on goal, one may not work out, another may work so-so, another one may be a real hit. So at the outset, we have 3 assets on our way to about 4 to 5. And then as those assets mature through proof of concept or R&D studies, then we feed in new ones. So we'll be shopping around and coming up with new ideas as to what to feed into the machine. As those things get de-risked and licensed to pharmaceutical companies, then there is this circle of monetization of the asset, or we decide to form companies with bringing venture capitalists to help us while retaining an equity stake in the new codes.
Great. All right. So even with the sale earlier this year, it's safe to say you're a serial entrepreneur and you have taken a full step into the next venture. Okay. So what would be some recommendations that you would give to other current and aspiring entrepreneurs, many of which the best and the brightest are right here in the audience? What would be your advice?
A lot of very seasoned people here, so please forgive me. These things are earmarked mostly to when I talk to younger people, postdocs, students, but they ask me the same thing. And I, in so many words, I concluded the same. I concluded on certain things. All right. So what are those values that you really need to maintain clear in your head, no matter what? And one of them, there are about 5 of them maybe 6. The first one is conviction. Call it stubbornness if you want. But conviction that no matter what comes your way, you're going to find a way forward. Either jump over it, go around it, not necessarily by yourself. I mean, ally yourself with really smart people, and I know my limitations, so I always reached out to very smart people within my network, within the universities, to opine on this. And I have to tell you, people see you working hard, they fall over each other to help you. That's always been my experience. Number 2 is courage. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. I mean, it's kind of scary to roll the dice on something that may or may not work. But that's one. You have to have the courage to do it. 3 is integrity. You're either honest or you're not. And there's only one choice to run anything in your life, whether a business or anything else. So that's fundamental. The next one is hard work. You're going to work like an animal, and then there's no getting around that. The last one is optimism. That cup, that glass is always half full, no matter what. Because, people walk around with a cloud on their head, expecting the worst. Doesn't work. It happens. And fun. It has to be fun. And don't take yourself too seriously, and have some fun while we work too hard. And it's nice to build camaraderie with your crew, with your colleagues, with your network.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I remember you said when we were talking previously, just retirement. Like, why would I when it's fun? I love what I'm doing, being an entrepreneur. So I like that you incorporate the fun part in being a part of an entrepreneur and wisdom there. So I think we're about at the end of our talk. But any last thoughts that you'd want to share with our audience here?
This is a little tongue-in-cheek, but not really. But it's concluding remarks. All right. For the entrepreneurs in the room, decide on what is that thing. As if you were born in the 60s, like I did. I mean, in 1950, I came of age in the 60s. Decide what is that wonderful thing that you can do to change this world, whether it's green energy or gene therapy or what have you. Work with the conviction and the zest and the hormones, I guess, of a crusader. And break with orthodoxy in terms of this nonsense of doing everything in moderation. Do everything in excess. Show me an athlete, an accomplished musician, a very successful business person, entrepreneur. They're maniacs, all of us. There are certain behaviors that you shouldn't do in the first place, but all those that are good, you have to do them in excess. Is practice, 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 I think.
Love it. All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If we can give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Tina and Marco, and they're going to stick around if you have any questions. If there's one lesson that I got from this is when Marco started Paragon, there was nothing in the state of Maryland to help him start a business. Now we do have a lot of those resources, so I ask you to go to the Entrepreneur Hub at the exhibit hall and talk to all the many different entities in the state that can help you grow your business. They're there. There's also going to be networking lounge, and this afternoon you can participate in an entrepreneur speed dating. So please take those chances and participate in all those things, again, in the exhibit hall. And of course, when you are at the exhibit hall, be sure to find the TEDCO exhibit table, present the red ticket that was in your bag, and get some giveaway that TEDCO gave for you. It's first come, first serve, so I think that we still have a few of those. And be sure to stick for TEDCO's closing reception. So we're going to have a great reception at the end of the evening when we're going to have Secretary Kelly Schultz from Department of Commerce, who's going to announce together with Brian Darmody about the grand opening of AURP HQ2. This is just like Amazon, only a little bit bigger. So please stick around for that, and Brian's going to tell you all about it. And it's right here in College Park, so we're very excited about having that. With all of those sessions and networking opportunities, we are confident that you'll find enormous values in this year's Entrepreneur Expo. And again, we want to thank all the exhibitors and all the sponsors who came in today and are participating in our event. And again, to the AARP Innovation Labs and the UM Venture for their generous support. So thank you and enjoy the afternoon sessions.
Yeah. Thank you again, Marco. Awesome. Thank you. That was great. Yeah, that was phenomenal.
Okay.
I loved it.